Welcome back. Russian President Vladimir Putin is arriving in India today for an official visit, his first trip to the country in 4 years and the first since the Russia-Ukraine war escalated in February 2022. Security has been significantly tightened across New Delhi ahead of this key bilateral engagement. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will personally host President Putin for a private dinner this evening at his official residence, 7 Lok Kalyan Marg, marking the leaders' first meet since the much talked about meet at the SCO summit in China. A major focus amid this key visit, of course, is on the bilateral deals that will be signed between India and Russia. Let us take a look at the current trade between the two countries. In fact, this is one of the major cooperation areas that we have been talking about, and we have been pointing it out to you, how India-Russia trade is very important in the coming days. Now, when we look at the bilateral trade between India and Russia, we are looking at the total trade, which stands at $68.72 billion. So that's a massive amount of trade between both the countries. That's the total. And India's exports to Russia, so that form $4.88 billion. So India's trade to Russia is of $4.88 billion volume. And when we look at Russia's exports to India, it forms $63.84 billion. And obviously, this can be because of Russia's exports being oil and military equipment that can cost a lot, and hence you see that trade deficit. So India's trade deficit with Russia stands at $59.96 billion. Obviously, remember that these are figures from the financial year 2024 to 25, and India is now looking at bridging this trade deficit that is currently in between both the nations. So when this is the overall picture when we look at the bilateral trade between India and Russia. So let's look at India's exports to Russia. What does India export to Russia, and how much of that is in terms of volume? Engineering goods form $1.26 billion. So engineering goods are forming a volume of $1.26 billion, and this is exports. Electronic goods export form $862.48 million in trade volume. Drug formulations actually form $577.22 million, and organic and inorganic chemicals form $545 million as trade volume from India's exports to Russia. So these are some of the areas that India is actually exporting to Russia, and the leading being engineering goods, which India is actually exporting to Russia, and that forms one of the biggest trade volumes. When we are looking at Russia's exports to India, so this is the big picture, that $59 million that we were looking at. Petroleum crude obviously forms the biggest chunk. We are looking at petroleum crude at a volume of $56.8 billion. So that's the most massive chunk of export, Russian export to India. Fertilizers then come in next at $1.84 billion. Vegetable fats and oils comes next at $2.39 billion, and pearl, precious and semi-precious stones at $433.93 million. So this is what the profile of Russian exports to India. This is something, this looks like this, the chart, and obviously the most important being petroleum crude, and that's what Russia has been exporting to India. And that's what something that has been actually talked about also because of the US sanctions that have been put in place. Now, joining us on the broadcast is Ambassador KP Fabian, who is a former diplomat, and Dr. Sharat Kohli, a senior economist. I thank you both for joining us this morning and discussing this meeting that is going to be held, in fact, between India and Russia. Ambassador Fabian, if I could come to you, we are talking about trade volumes between India and Russia. Obviously, during this meet that is going to be held over the next 2 days, we are expecting trade volumes to increase. We are expecting a lot of deals to actually be made between both the countries on the energy front as well, and also on the technology front. So how are you looking at the trade picture to change going forward between India and Russia?
Thank you. Good morning. First thing to note is that the financial dealings between the two countries include the trade, that is goods and services, but also include the defense purchases, though it is not reflected, when the statistics are put out. Now, obviously, the defense purchases are going to account for a good deal of the financial dealings. Second point is that there will be a big elephant in the room when Prime Minister Modi and President Putin meet, and there will be also a smaller elephant. Now, the bigger elephant is President Putin, and it is my view that, President Trump, and it is my view that after the visit is over, and the visit will be highly successful, President Putin should send a thank you note to President Trump, because it is partly, not entirely, partly because of President Trump's misguided tariff increase and other policies towards India that President Putin will have such a huge success. Now, the smaller elephant in the room is the European Union plus the United Kingdom. As you know, 3 ambassadors, UK, France, and Germany, did write an op-ed, and writing an op-ed is okay, but they used undiplomatic language about President Putin, and I'm so glad that the External Affairs Ministry has reacted in a measured but a correct way, pointing out that what these heads of mission did was wrong. They shouldn't have done that. And we should also take note of the fact that the geopolitical situation is quite tricky. The waters can be quite treacherous, but India is navigating these waters very, very skillfully. And what happens between India and Russia will be good for Russia and India, for the region and for the entire world.
Absolutely. In fact, let me also go across to Dr. Kohli, who is also joining us. Dr. Kohli, when we look at trade volumes, India-Russia trade seems to be a little skewed because we have, a trade deficit of around $59 million, which we will look to in fact bridge. So, when you look at this upcoming visit, economically, how does it fare for India? Does it look good for the charts going forward?
Good morning, Shivani. I think it will open new vistas for trade, because there were a lot of areas which remained unexplored as far as India and Russia is concerned. The trade was principally cornered around the crude oil. Well, Russia is a big country. It is the biggest country in the world, although the population may not be as much as India. But then there is a lot of potential, because there's a lot of innovation which goes on in Russia, and especially after the sanctions imposed on Russia from the Western world. I think India opens new gates for Russia. So the opportunity for Russia to make the best out of President Putin's visit is definitely there. I'm sure this will come in startups, this will come in innovation, this will come in space technology, science technology, manufacturing, agriculture. Practically every aspect is going to be explored, and I'm sure there are facts lined up already for President Putin's visit and his delegation, and there will be a lot of declarations signed in the next 2 days. Shivani.
Right. And also, when we are looking at the trade, when we look at defense deal, we are also looking at technology transfer. So how do you think that will in fact affect?
Well, we've seen the impact of Russian technology during Operation Sindoor. As far as the defense technology is concerned, I'm referring to S-400. And Russia has been a very old and seasoned partner of India as far as the defense imports are concerned. So we will see newer pacts being signed. And I think now India has also got prowess in defense. So I'm sure Russian president is also going to be interested in what Indian defense manufacturing, it is catching up, how it is gradually increasing its exports around the world.
Right.
Shivani.
All right. I thank Dr. Kohli and Ambassador Fabian for joining us on the broadcast and sharing those valuable insights. We're shifting focus now. Flex boards welcoming Russian President Vladimir Putin and Russian national flags put up around Teen Murti Marg. At the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, President Putin will pay a state visit to India from December 4 and 5, 2025 for the 23rd India-Russia Annual Summit. During the visit, he will hold talks with Prime Minister Modi. President Draupadi Murmu will also receive President Putin and host a banquet in his honor. Joining us on the broadcast is my colleague Aditya Vadhavan with more on this. Aditya, the entire city in Delhi, the national capital, is all lit up. There are flags, there are banners, all welcoming President Putin.
Well, absolutely. Indeed, it is a it is as per the standard operating procedure that whenever any foreign dignitary, arrives in New Delhi, the banners and placards in support of the particular president of the country are displayed across all the Latians, Delhi, be it the Teen Murti March, be it the Shanti Path March. So indeed, it is a the flex boards, showcasing the pictures of Russian President Vladimir Putin, indeed are a testament to the fact that, how India and Russia have excellent diplomatic relations and all-weather allies. Russia and India are definitely all time-trusted friends, and indeed we could expect some major defense deals and some trade business deals when Russian President Vladimir Putin arrives in New Delhi today evening. So indeed, there is a lot to achieve for both the countries, and it is a win-win situation for both India and Russia. And definitely, the Russian time and again we have seen that Russian ambassador to India, Denis Elipov, also makes statements, which are supportive of India, and every time we have seen that how the things between the two countries have walked smoothly. Considering the fact that Russia also has relations with considering that Russia has the relations with China and Pakistan as well, it has maintained smooth relations with India, so far, and definitely it is expected to go this way in the times to come. Shivani.
Absolutely, Aditya. Thank you so much for all those details on that story. We're